at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance. Monday, June 10th. Did you have a good weekend? Did you have some fun? Did you recharge? Did you see your family or loved ones or do nothing? Whatever you did, I hope you had fun doing it. And I saw Secret Lives of Pets 2. Okay, that's what I'm up to. I needed to relax. I needed a break from everything. It was funny. Kevin Hart and a bunch of other funny voices there. It was actually really good. Harrison Ford. It was funny. So I will not be here the next 2 days. Do not be worried. And I'm not taking a vacation either. It's sort of a working 2 days off. I am going to federal court to testify against the neo-Nazis who fabricated tweets in 2017 saying I was involved in the Manchester bombing at the concert, Ariana Grande concert, and then called for people to confront me, and I was sent death threats. So we sued them for defamation and emotional distress. So our big hearing is coming up in the next 2 days. I'm traveling out of state for it. On Thursday, I will come back and bring you up to speed on it. I might even bring my little recorder and interview my lawyers and some of the other people involved to see why they got involved in all of this. But just think about it. 2019, I have to sue Trump-loving white supremacists. And I'm not guessing they're Trump-loving. The article I wrote that made them come after me was, why won't Donald Trump use the words white supremacist terrorism? And this was before Charlottesville. This was 2 months before Charlottesville. This was in May of 2017. We already had 4 Americans killed by self-professed white supremacists. And I called on Donald Trump, who said, you got to say radical Islamic terrorism if you want to solve it. I'm like, then why won't you say the words white supremacist terrorism? Well, that's the white supremacists got mad. They love Trump. They campaigned for him on their website, The Daily Stormer, and others as well of the white supremacist people, type, racist, bigots, garbage, vile people. And then they fabricated tweets and said I was involved in a bombing just to silence me. Because if you're a Muslim, the most effective smear is to say there's 2 of them. One is that you don't believe in America, you're not patriotic to this country because of your faith. You hear that all the time. And the second one's we're a terrorist. So they went after the terrorist one. And so I did get death threats. And it was concerning. And it's still concerning to this day. Little things in my life I have to worry about because of people who read the Daily Stormer aren't armchair white supremacists. They've done things. People like Dylan Roof was a reader of the Daily Stormer who wants to start a race war and walked into the all-black church in Charleston and executed 9 African Americans to start a race war. That's his own words. And people like James Jackson, who came to New York in March of 2017, was a reader of the Daily Stormer. He came to start a race war. He killed 1 African American man and then was arrested, thankfully, and others. So this is the world we live in, thanks to Donald Trump. Look, there were neo-Nazis before Donald Trump. Absolutely clear. There were white supremacists before Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. He didn't create them. They were there. He emboldened them to do what they did to me and done to others. And if you see the garbage they wrote about in their comments section, everything they hate, they attack you about. So they call me everything from being, because they hate Jews, then I'm Jewish. So I'm a Muslim Jew to them. That's how stupid these pieces of garbage are. And then also somehow they call me a beaner. So somehow I'm Mexican. I'm not kidding, the actual comments, because I'm going over it with all the lawyers because we're going to have to testify in federal court over it. They called me gay numerous times, even though I'm not gay, but this is the groups they hate. And they couldn't call me black, but they called me an immigrant, and they use the N-word a lot, even though I'm not black. This is the scum that love Trump. They love Trump. Don't forget David Duke, who's not involved with the Daily Stormer, but David Duke said, you're a traitor to your race. You do not support Donald Trump. And he was speaking not to me, to white people, of course. That's where we are. So I'll be the next 2 days fighting Nazis, neo-Nazis in federal court. And hopefully I'll come back Thursday and tell everyone that we got a really good judgment, even though I might not actually have a number. And hopefully it'll go well. So before we get into other stuff here. And we got to talk about what happened today with the testimony with John Dean and others. And it's beginning to look like a lot like impeachment. I'm hoping we start impeachment during my lifetime. And I think I'm in pretty good health. So it could be decades from now, because I don't know when the Democrats will actually start impeachment. But maybe in my lifetime, in our lifetime, they will. But today they creep closer. But first, this happened on Sunday. Congressman Rob Woodall, a Republican from Georgia, was on MSNBC with Casey Hunt. And she asked him about the Mueller report. And this, to me, exemplifies the celebration of ignorance in the GOP under Donald Trump. He was simply asked, did you read the Mueller report? This is a member of Congress. We're 2 months after the Mueller report came out. And here's his response. Listen carefully and closely. Clip number 1, please.
Have you read the Mueller report?
I have not.
Why not?
I said when we started this conversation that I trusted Mr. Mueller. He took a lot of slings and arrows throughout this process, but every U.S. attorney I knew said this is a man of great integrity.
Yeah.
He's going to lead
So why not read the
this
report?
investigation. Well, I have a concern when you put the entire power of the United States Justice Department behind anything. You can achieve an agenda. You can drive a message. All of those.
So you think the Mueller report was just driving an agenda?
Well,
that there's
no.
nothing in there that's worth figuring out.
Well, you tell me what that investigation is that Mueller said I didn't get a chance to do. He had a chance to do it all. He had
Right,
full
but I'm
faith
saying,
and
like, we're
credit.
talking about the report, right? Okay, so fine. We're not talking about going beyond the Mueller report. I'm saying, why not read? I mean, there's 10 things in there on obstruction where he said, hey, the president may have obstructed justice here, Congress. He seemed to say you need to figure that out. I mean, why not?
Well, he didn't say to Congress you need to figure that out, right? Obstruction is not a political issue. Obstruction is a criminal
But
issue.
he did say to Congress, he was like, I can't make a decision about this because I'm not allowed to constitutionally indict a sitting president of the United States. So Congress, over to you.
That's right. Congress, over to you if you want to pursue impeachment proceedings.
What makes me laugh is that he said Mueller didn't say that. And she goes, but he did. And he goes, okay, he said that. He doesn't know. He didn't read the report. This is a United States member of the House of Representatives. Your job, you're paid $179,000 a year to do your job. And one of your jobs would be reading the Robert Mueller report, right? Don't you think that should be an obligation of every member of Congress? It's only 435. You had 2 months. You could not even do that. And this Republican congressman doesn't matter because knowledge to them isn't important. The party line and defending Donald Trump at all costs, that's all that matters. This celebration of stupidity and ignorance that we're seeing the time of Trump, I think is uneclipsed. And Woodall comes across as a pretty smart guy overall, but he didn't feel like I need to learn anything. I don't need to read the report. Well, I'm not going to vote against Trump. Come on. I'll get primaried. So it's off the charts. But today, there were some big hearings and some developments on the front of potentially one day in my lifetime, in your lifetime, beginning an impeachment inquiry. I hope they start it before the November 3rd, 2020 election. That's all I can hope at this point. So there was a House Judiciary Committee hearing called by Gerald Nadler, and it was really the first hearings to talk about the findings of the Mueller report. So this is the beginning, and I'll have to be honest. I watched some of it, and it had the feel of the beginning of an impeachment inquiry. But first, there was some news before that hearing took place. And it shows to me that the Trump administration might be getting more and more concerned we're getting close to impeachment, and that their own actions of stonewalling on every request by Democrats was moving Democrats, even those in the middle, to say, let's do an impeachment inquiry. And if you have any doubts that Donald Trump doesn't want to be impeached, remember his comments just a week ago we played where he said impeachment's a dirty word, and he lashed out against it. Well, today a deal was made because Bill Barr, Donald Trump's lawyer, who happens to be attorney general, but he's really a Trump lawyer, had refused to give unredacted portions of the Mueller report to the House Judiciary Committee. And you had the chairman about to hold Bill Barr in contempt, criminal contempt, for doing that. Well, today a deal was made, and according to Nadler's statement, he said Robert Mueller is going to give us the important files to us, providing us with key evidence that the special counsel used to assess whether the president and others obstructed justice, and saying if they proceed in good faith, then there will be no need to take further steps. So it seems that the Trump administration is getting a sense that stonewalling on every single request is going to lead to the impeachment inquiry kicking off. And I think that's interesting to them. So that's why they gave it on that. They still have not agreed to let Don McGahn testify, the Trump's White House counsel. So they're giving crumbs to fend off more Democrats moving to the impeachment column. Now let's go to the hearing itself. Gerald Nadler, the chair, said that They're having the hearings to examine the findings laid out in Mueller's report so we can work to protect the rule of law and protect future elections through consideration of legislative and other remedies. And then they had a series of speakers at this event. Two you see on MSNBC all the time. Joyce White Vance, the former U.S. attorney from Alabama, said that no one's above the law. And she said very powerfully, if anyone other than a president of the United States committed this conduct, he would be under indictment for multiple acts of obstruction of justice. She added, if you or I committed the same conduct, we would have been charged with crimes by now. That was good testimony. Then you had Barbara McQuade, everyone sees her all the time, another former U.S. attorney, saying that the conduct described in the report, the Mueller report, constitutes multiple crimes of obstruction of justice. It is supported by evidence of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That was her testimony under oath. And they went through specific instances of Donald Trump committing obstruction of justice. We've gone through them many times ourselves here on this show. I think you get it, though. Witness tampering, witness intimidation, trying to obstruct the investigation itself. And then, though, the big witness was John Dean. And to remind everybody, John Dean was Richard Nixon's White House counsel. Like Don McGahn is for Trump, that's who John Dean was. And during the time of Watergate, he made headlines by testifying before the Senate Select Committee on presidential campaign activities and explained in great detail how White House officials, including Nixon, had obstructed justice in order to mask their participation in the Watergate break-in, which the Democratic National Committee's offices there in 1972. And later, Dean himself was convicted of obstruction of justice, served 4 months in prison for his involvement in the Watergate scandal. So here was John Dean. I'll play 2 short clips. Then you got to hear the Republican freak-out response. I got some audio. You're going to love this. So first, here's John Dean and what the Mueller report actually said in his view as a man who's been through one of the biggest scandals, Watergate, in our history. Clip number 2, please.
The last time I appeared before your committee was July 11, 1974, during the impeachment inquiry of Richard Nixon. Clearly, I'm not here today as a fact witness. I accepted the invitation to come here today because I hope I can give a little historical perspective on the Mueller report. In many ways, the Mueller report is to President Trump what the so-called Watergate roadmap, officially titled the Grand Jury Report and Recommendation Concerning Transmission of Evidence to the House of Representatives, was to President Richard Nixon. Stated a little differently, Special Counsel Mueller has provided this committee with a roadmap.
So there he is saying Mueller's report gave a roadmap to Congress now to take the next steps, which is a formal impeachment inquiry. And then, quick clip here, this is John Dean on Don McGahn, who as of now is not testifying because Trump is stonewalling. He's obstructing justice in front of us by saying Don McGahn should not testify as former White House counsel. And McGahn saying, well, if the president says I shouldn't testify, I'm not going to testify until a court resolves this. And here's John Dean, who held that exact same position as Don McGahn in the Nixon administration. Clip number 3.
Finally, let me close on the note, and I explained this at some length, that I certainly hope Don McGahn is a key witness before this committee. Because of my testimony, the model code of the ABA today makes very clear in Rule 1.13 that Mr. McGahn represents not Donald Trump, but the office of the president. His client is the office of the president, and I think he owes that office his testimony before this committee. Thank you.
So there are the words of John Dean. How upset were the Republicans and Trump by John Dean testifying? Well, first of all, Trump took to Twitter twice. Here's one of them whining. You know what's remarkable to me? Only to Trump supporters is whining a sign of strength. To the rest of us, it's pathetic. So if you're a Trump supporter, you're like, that Trump is strong. Just so you know, the rest of us see him as pathetic, as whining, as a ultimate beta male. And the rest of you think he's strong. He's the weakest, most insecure whiner I've ever seen. Hashtag whining is not winning, Trump. So here's what he whined about on Twitter. Can't believe they're bringing in John Dean to disgrace Nixon White House counsel. And who's a paid CNN contributor? No collusion, no obstruction. Democrats want do-over. And then at the hearing, Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz, who work for Trump apparently, did their best. Here's Jim Jordan. I got to play this. He's the guy. You remember Jim spelled Jym? He's the former assistant wrestling coach who didn't know about a sex scandal involving numerous wrestlers while he was coaching them by the wrestling doctor, which is remarkable. He didn't know about it. I don't know how he got elected to Congress if a guy that stupid didn't know what was going on, criminality right around him. In any event, here's Jim Jordan asking John Dean questions, and John Dean just plays these guys and gets the room to laugh mockingly at them. So here's first clip number 3.
I want to focus on that last sentence. As POTUS, as President of the United States, he, Donald Trump, is incapable of accomplishing anything. When you made that statement, Mr. Dean, what did you have in mind? You thinking about the 3.2% economic growth rate we had the last quarter? Thinking about the fact we got the lowest unemployment in 50 years? How about the fact the hostages are back from North Korea? Maybe you were thinking about this when you said the President of the United States was incapable of doing anything. Were you thinking about the fact that the embassy is now in Jerusalem? I mean, I think about this one. Every single candidate for as many cycles as I can remember, Republican and Democrat, have promised the American people, you elect me, we're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And guess what? They get elected and they come up with a million reasons why they can't do what they said they were going to do. But this president didn't. The embassy is now in Jerusalem. So I'm just wondering, what were you thinking about when you said he's incapable of accomplishing anything?
Mr. Jordan, I think that under the parliamentary rules of the House, I'm refrained from addressing a full answer to your question.
You weren't refrained.
So there was him. I'm telling you this, if you ask a question serious and the whole room laughs at you because of the response of the person you're questioning, you're losing badly. And it's so remarkable. He brings up the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. What does that mean to anybody? I mean, I guess if the only way Jesus returns in some of the right-wing evangelical view is that that's one of the steps in that way. But to the guys on the right, it means a lot. I think the rest of us doesn't really mean much. And then here was Matt Gaetz. You know Matt Gaetz, the guy with the DUI who might actually be disbarred for witness intimidation himself of Michael Cohen. And listen to him he's trying to ask questions and to be smart and shrewd, and John Dean just gets the whole room to laugh at him again. So here is clip number 9, please.
Written by Mr. John Dean, entitled George W. Bush as the New Richard Nixon, both wiretapped illegally and impeachably.
Without objection.
Mr. Dean, how many American presidents have you accused of being Richard Nixon?
I actually wrote a book about Mr. Bush and Mr. Cheney with the title Worse Than Watergate.
So it's sort of become a cottage. Did you make money on that book?
It was a very successful book,
How much
yes.
money did you make on it?
I'm sorry, I don't have any idea.
More than $1 million?
No.
More than $500,000?
I said I don't have any idea.
How much money do you make from CNN?
I don't really know exactly.
I think I'm going to object.
How do Democrats plan to pay for Medicare for all?
I'm sorry?
Well, I figured if we were going to ask you about stuff you don't know about, we'd start with the big stuff. So do you know how they plan to pay for Medicare for all?
Who? The Democrats, or which candidate, or can you be more specific?
Let's get specific to Nixon, since that appears to be why you're here. Do you believe?
Well, actually, Nixon did have a health care plan.
Good. Well, do you believe if we turned the lights off here and maybe lit some candles, got out a Ouija board, we could potentially raise the specter of Richard Nixon?
I doubt that.
So, and that's the best the Republicans have. That's how bad this party is. That's their bench. Their bench is Donald Trump, and then Jim Jordan, who won't wear a jacket, and Matt Gaetz, who gets abused by John Dean. Now, John Dean's very crafty. He's been around for a while, and I'm going to be honest, he would be challenging to cross-examine for anyone. But he just ate him up and spit him out. And so the right is upset about John Dean very much. Will it move the needle? I have no idea. I love the fact that he crushed them and destroyed them. But the big question for everyone out here, for those of you who want an impeachment inquiry to begin yesterday or during our lifetime, does these hearings in Judiciary Committee, which are the normal oversight hearings, but they sound like impeachment inquiries, because you're talking about the elements of obstruction of justice. You're bringing in former U.S. attorneys to testify about what the elements are. You're not actually doing the fact-finding yet. That's really what the impeachment inquiry would be. But is this a good step? Or do you want the impeachment inquiry to begin? Or have you thrown up your arms and given up on it, which I think is the most unfortunate part if that's happened to us? Or you just focus on the 2020 candidates at this point and say, let the House Democrats do what they're going to do. Let's focus on our 2020 candidates so we win an election. Does your opinion change at all from what you've heard or seen today? I'm sure it didn't get a lot of coverage of John Dean, testimony, but you get the idea. He's having these hearings with John Dean and former U.S. attorneys, laying out the elements for obstruction of justice. It's good stuff. It's not winning stuff, but it's good stuff. So, look, you're my guest at the top of the hour. If you want to talk about Iowa and the new polls, I'm happy to talk about that as well, and media ridiculous narratives. But give me a call, 866-997-4748. Love to hear from you right after this break on the Dean Obeidallah Show. Look, it's time the media start calling out Trump's false statements for what they are. Lies. Trump's a liar. And by the looks of it, he's